Some leaders, they change laws, others, they win wars. But every so often, you get someone who comes along and doesn't just rule a kingdom, they completely remake it from the ground up. Today, that's who we're talking about, the one and only William the Conqueror. So, how does a bastard become a conqueror? I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? It's the core of his entire unbelievable story. His whole life was one long fight against where he came from. And to really get who he was, you first have to understand the one label he could never, ever shake.
Yeah, see, back in the 11th century, being called the bastard, that wasn't just some schoolyard insult. Oh no, it was basically a political death sentence. It meant you had zero legitimate claim to land, to titles, to power, anything. For William, just overcoming that one word was the first, and you could argue the biggest battle he ever had to win. All right, so how did he pull it off? Well, his story kicks off in Normandy, where, and I'm not exaggerating here, he had to fight for his life and his title from pretty much the moment he was born. And here it is. This is the root of the whole problem. His dad, Robert, was the powerful Duke of Normandy, a big deal. But his mom, Herleva, she was a commoner, the daughter of a tanner, of all things. The relationship wasn't a marriage, and that one simple fact, well, it lit a fire that would fuel decades of rebellion and war. I mean, just try to wrap your head around this. He becomes the Duke at 7 years old. His childhood wasn't about tutors and toys. It was a constant battle for survival against assassins and scheming barons who wanted him dead. But here's the thing. He was absolutely ruthless. He survives, and his huge victory at the Battle of Valles Dunes pretty much cements his power. And that marriage to Matilda of Flanders? Yeah, that wasn't just a love match. It was a brilliant political move, a strategic masterstroke that got him a super powerful ally.
Okay, so Normandy is finally locked down. It's his. But for a guy like William, that was never going to be enough. He started looking for a much, much bigger prize. And his ambition, plus a pretty convenient family connection, pointed him right across the English Channel, to the throne of England.
And this right here is the justification for everything that's about to happen. See, William's whole claim to the English throne rested on two key things. First, a supposed promise from the English king, Edward the Confessor, who didn't have any kids. And second, a sacred oath sworn by the most powerful guy in England, an earl named Harold Godwinson. So in William's mind, this was a done deal. The only problem? Harold had, well, he had other plans. So what you have here is a total deadlock, an impossible situation. You've got two incredibly powerful men, and both have what looks like a legitimate claim. On one side, William has the promise and the holy oath. But on the other, Harold has the support of all the English nobles, and, this is the kicker, the king's last words on his deathbed. There was just no way to compromise here. This was only ever going to be settled one way, with a war. And so, William gets ready for the biggest gamble of his entire life, a full-blown invasion of England, to take by force what he was convinced was his by right.
1066. If there's one date you remember from English history, it's probably this one. This is the year it all changed, the year a Norman duke decided to cross the channel and take himself a crown. Look, this wasn't some simple little raid. This was a massive logistical operation. Just building the fleet of ships was an incredible achievement. Then they had to cross the channel. But the real showdown, of course, was at the Battle of Hastings, a brutal, bloody, all-day fight that honestly could have gone either way. But when Harold died on the battlefield, the English resistance just crumbled, and suddenly the road to London was wide open. And here it is, the moment his entire life has been building towards. He's crowned King of England on Christmas Day, of all days in Westminster Abbey. And that was pure political theater, a brilliant move. It was a powerful message to everyone. I'm not just some foreign invader. I am the legitimate, God-appointed King of England. But, winning the crown is one thing. Actually keeping it? That's a whole other ballgame. William knew he couldn't just sit back. He had to completely remake England to make sure his rule would stick. The conquest wasn't over. In a way, it was just getting started. So, William went to work, and he systematically took apart the old Anglo-Saxon power structure. First, the land, the source of all wealth and power, he seized it and handed it out to his loyal Norman buddies. Then, he starts building castles everywhere, like the Tower of London.
These weren't just for defense, they were giant stone symbols of Norman dominance, a constant reminder of who was in charge. And finally, he replaced the entire English ruling class with his own guys, a new French-speaking aristocracy. And just like that, the language and culture of England were changed forever. All right, fast forward 20 years into his reign. William launches what might be his most ambitious project yet, something called the Doomsday Book. And listen, this was way more than just a census. This was a complete, top-to-bottom audit of his entire kingdom. It was a tool for absolute, total control. The amount of detail in this thing was just staggering. I mean it. William wanted to know everything, who owned every single chunk of land, exactly what it was worth, and who owed him what, literally, down to the last pig. For its time, it was an unbelievably modern piece of administration. It let him tax his new kingdom with ruthless efficiency and lock in the new feudal system he'd put in place. So after all that, what was the end result? The thing about William's actions is that they didn't just impact his own lifetime. No, they sent ripples down through the centuries, literally shaping the England we know today. This really gives you a sense of the total transformation of England. It wasn't just a new king on the throne. He changed how the country was governed, he changed the words people spoke, he changed the buildings you'd see on the horizon. His impact was total. The old Anglo-Saxon England, the one that existed before 1066, it was gone, completely erased and rewritten by the Normans. And what's so crucial to understand is that this wasn't a temporary thing. This wasn't some short-term occupation. William started a brand new royal dynasty. He permanently tied the fate of England to the rest of Europe, setting the stage for hundreds of years of both conflict and connection. So it all leaves us with this one big question, right? Was William a brutal conqueror who just wiped out an entire culture? Or was he a visionary creator who built a new, stronger nation from the ashes? The truth, like it always is probably somewhere in the middle. But one thing is for sure, the boy who started life being called the bastard ended it as the man who completely remade a nation.